you might be happy about this. You might not be. I don't know. But this is the wrap up of the last 4 weeks of teaching. Okay. If you haven't caught the first 4, this is week 5 on this. So if you haven't caught the first 4, go back online and catch up on those. It's amazing to me, like I said last week, that of all things controversial that I've preached on in my stellar 21-year career of preaching and teaching God's Word, this has gotten some of the most powerful reactions. And it's amazing because it's like, all right, we're a Christian church, believers, followers of Jesus, and we're teaching about love. Love in the time of, I typed the wrong thing this time. Well, it didn't matter. Y'all didn't get it last time anyways. Love in the time of Corona. I put cholera. But we've been talking about love in the time of Corona. And of all things to be upset about, talking about love shouldn't be it. It should be our foundational linchpin as believers. You know, after a song like Rock of Ages and incredible performance of such a powerful song, I feel like the B team coming in, like 3rd string. Yeah, that's right, isn't it, Bree? Bree's just laughing about it. It's hard to follow that kind of stuff. My new tactic will be to somehow mess the song up before I get up here so I don't look quite as bad. But we've talked about this for 5 weeks, and this is kind of what we've done. And today is the wrap-up of all of that. We've talked about love, and a New Testament understanding of love. We've looked at the syntax, the grammar, the wording of it. We've looked at the one another passages, all the one another passages that teach us something very specific about love, and we've dissected those, and I hope that we've come to a place where we can answer this question: why take such an interest in this? Especially in a time like this, especially right now, maybe this is probably the most important thing. In fact, I know it is. I don't even have to actually go out on a limb for that. I know that right now and in the past and in the future, the thing that will always matter the most to the world, to each other, and especially to God the Father is this truth: learning how to love one another. It is that important. And we talked about this over the last few weeks. The problem is that love includes very subjective elements. Again, if you hadn't been with us, just go back and watch that. Just real quickly, the way that someone loves their wife is very different than the way they love their brother, or the way they love their son is very different than the way they love a cousin. Love is very different in its application, subjective in its application, but immovable on its definition. And so that's what we've been looking at. What's the definition? Are y'all with me? Okay. I still feel like the B team out here. So love includes all this subjectivity, and there's a wide range of interpretation evident even within the church today. We think that love is just a warm, fuzzy feeling, or we think that love is only being nice all the time. Or you can go to the other side. I know people that think love is really just coming down on everybody and being the sin police. Well, I'm doing it because I love you. I'm pointing out all the things that are bad about you because I love you. And so we have this really bad understanding of this. And we need desperately to be very accurate on this because of all of these reasons. It's literally the number one thing that we should be doing. This is like summarizing and catching us up to where we've been. Jesus says it's the greatest commandment. Paul says it's the only thing that matters. He says the absence of love cancels out everything else. Peter says above all, we should keep our love for one another fervent, and we talked about that last week, what that word fervent really means. And then John, that we studied last week, said that we literally can't know the love of God unless we are able to know how to love each other, and they are inextricably tied. That's a word that I fumbled on, huh? They are tied together. Jesus ties them together. Love for God and love for others are inseparable. You can't have one without the other. And so some of us that are really good at just coming in and worshiping our tails off are just really nasty or arrogant or prideful to other believers. Or some of us that are really good at loving each other, we really are far from God. And so the Bible literally tells us that the two can't be separated. They are very much the same thing. Jesus said, love the Lord your God. And the second is like the first one. Love your neighbor as yourself. And so we went through these four guys, literally the four probably heaviest hitters of the New Testament, right? Four heaviest hitters of the New Testament. Definitely Jesus can't be argued as one of the heavy hitters of the New Testament. Pretty sure that's not something we can argue about. It's not something very controversial. Jesus, kind of a heavy hitter if you're a follower of Jesus, a believer in Jesus. But Paul and Peter and John belabor this subject, like literally to a point where it's almost exhausting. We've been 5 weeks and I've picked out very small sections of the idea, the overall subject matter of what it is to love. I've only picked out the one another passages in the New Testament. That's all I've taught on, and it's been 5 weeks on just the one another passages and how to love each other and why it's so important and what it looks like. What are the words that point to what it looks like? And we ended on John last week, but just to refresh as we move into the New Testament example, 1 John 3:11 says, "For this is the message which you've heard from the beginning." And this is another one another passage, but that one little point right there is super important. We're not saying this because we're Christian hippies, like you're supposed to love each other, man, and Jesus is all about love. Maybe not in the way that, Christian hippies feel about it, because I feel like they swing to one side and the super conservative, scary people swing to the other side. And it's not something that we've made up recently, like we're supposed to do this because, no, literally from the beginning of the message about who God is all about love. He created us in love and for love to share in a love relationship with Him. We messed it up, and the process of redemption was 100% about restoring a relationship that He didn't have to restore. He's a God of love. He's a God that desperately seeks after you and I and chases us down with this redeeming love. And it's from the beginning. If you know about God, you know about love. It's not something that has come up recently. That's why the vocabulary and the syntax of these verses are so important, because it tells us specifically about what's going on. And the reason why that's important, one of the big reasons I think, is that a lot of people say, well, the God of the New Testament is very different than the God of the Old Testament. And it's like, man, have you read it closely enough? Yes, there is some very difficult passages there. And there are some very difficult things to wade through. But if you look into why He's doing everything He's doing, it's literally to redeem us, to wash us clean, to bring us back to Himself again. And the God of the Old Testament is the same God as in the New Testament, because He's the same yesterday, today, and forever. And so this is not something that is new to us, and it's not something that we made up, and it's not like God changed His mind and became something completely different for the New Testament folks, because the old way is not really working too well. This has been the message from the beginning. 1 John 3:16 says, we know love by this, that He laid down His life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for our brethren. We've been looking at these key modifiers, like what modifies. We say this word love, love, love. And so what modifies it, meaning what makes it more clear and powerful and useful and for us more able to use it in a powerful way. And these modifiers are things like the kind of love we're talking about is the kind of love that is willing to lay down our lives for somebody else. That's not the kind of love that the world offers. It's not the kind of love that we want to have. We only want the kind of love that benefits me. Like, we're really good at trying to form the concept of love into a thing that really makes me feel better and offers me security and offers me happiness. And we're really good at modifying it for our own good. But what the Bible says is that this modification actually goes the other way. The modification that the New Testament puts forth as the model of love is one that literally is putting everybody else before yourself. And I want you to hear me clearly, because we've talked about this for a long time, and this isn't a new subject either. And most competent teachers of the Word will tell you that this is the kind of love that we are to have for each other, and yet we still don't hear it. It really bounces off of us because it's so fleshly enticing to have a model of love that is good for me. I married 2 people last Sunday, and one of the things I say at every wedding ceremony I do, Will and Kate, Danny and Whitney last week, everybody that I've married, there's a place in there that we have to explain that the love that you are to have for each other is based upon a covenant, not a contract. We like contract type of love. Contracts like have lists of things that will make me happy, and it's like, here, you do these things to make me happy because I want you to love me the right way. Covenant is just the opposite. Covenant says, actually, I'm completely filled. My love needs, my heart needs are satisfied in a relationship so deep with Jesus that it's overflowing to the point where I don't approach you out of need anymore. Friendships, marriages, church relationships almost always are defaulted to a place that is good for ourselves. And we almost always approach friendships and romantic relationships with, I need something from you. Either I'm lonely and I need you to keep me company, or I feel very... Did you see that look, Atticus? Better watch out. The masked. All I saw were the eyes. We approach each other in need like, I want to be your friend, and it's usually not because I think that I can offer so much to your life. It's like, hey, I need companionship. Could you offer something to me? And we naturally default to the type of love, the structural system of love that is, hey, what do I benefit out of this relationship? Instead of the modification of, hold on a second, I want to build relationships where I approach you and I say, look, I want to pour into your life. Like, that's my job in relationship with my friends, in relationship with my family, in relationship with my spouse. How do I pour into that person's life? And it's completely impossible to do if you are not first filled by a relationship with your Creator and your Sustainer and the source of true love in the universe. If you are not first placed under that like beam of pure love, you can't then reflect it to anybody else. You can't approach under your own strength and understanding another person and offer them anything. We are so messed up all on our own, right? Like, we are so messed up, it's hard to even please me by manipulating the world around me, much less to bring happiness to another human being's life when I am so in need? And what the Bible offers is a new formula, a modification that we are to love each other in the exact opposite way, where we approach each other in overflow, in abundance, because my heart needs are met. My desperate need for acceptance is met in the Creator who made me and died for me. My needs for value, to be valued, are met in the value I get from what my God tells me I am. My desperate need to know that I'm desired and beautiful and pursued are all met in a God of pursuit that found me, that came after me when I was a dirty, filthy nothing and loved me. And the more I understand that situation, the more I'm able to approach people no longer in need, but in abundance. And it can't be done on your own. It says, little children, let us not love with word or with tongue, two things that are pretty easy, but I need you to do it in deed and in truth. There's the vocabulary and syntax, not with word or tongue, but in deed and in truth. Don't be fake, don't be false. Reject superficial relationships. And I'm not talking about people that come to you superficially. I'm saying reject the desire to be superficial to others. This goes so far beyond just changing the way you say things to each other. This is doing it in truth and in deed. That's the kind of love that God wants us to have. In chapter 4, verse 7, it says, Beloved, let us love one another, for love is from God, and everyone who loves is born of God and knows God. The one who does not love does not know God, for God is love. The last one, another passage we'll get to. And the inference here is that if we don't know God, we don't know love. If you do know God, you know love. The one who does not love does not know God. The one who does love has the clearest picture of God that we can ever form so much more powerfully than in theological studies, so much more powerfully than any seminary and any deep Bible study. The thing that shows us who God is more than anything is when we experience deep, real love for one another. And then you say, this is a little piece of heaven, because it feels so close to who God actually is. And it's a powerful truth. Listen, yesterday we were at White Oak, and we were at this campsite that was completely packed, the state park there that was completely packed from start to finish. And I was talking to, I don't remember who it was either, I don't know, some of us grown-ups talking. And I was like, you know, one of the cool things about this, we were sitting there and there was at least 3 to 4 races that were represented there. There was white and black, and there was a Hispanic family at the top of the hill. And everybody was mingling and enjoying each other. And there was hundreds of kids riding up and down the street on bicycles that never knew each other, that were from different backgrounds and races and cultures, and they were all laughing and having a great time together, where everybody was cooking out, enjoying each other. There was some little kid that rode by us like 97 times, and as he rode by, he said, hi, and he'd go about 10 feet and go, bye, and then come back by and go, hi, bye. And so then Chris was like, let's beat him to it. And as he was approaching, we all went, hi! And he was like, and I was like, if that kid's parents are watching, they're like, don't you drive by that campsite no more. Between me and Chris, the voice level is probably a little overwhelming. Poor kid was like 3 years old on a little baby bike. And you're looking around, you're like, this is amazing. We're all just enjoying each other, perfect strangers, just bumping into each other and enjoying each other and talking to each other and swimming. And we're out there like morons swimming after dark in or in White Oak Lake, like wading through alligators and whatnot. And people are trying to pull up, and we're on the boat ramp, and people are trying to pull up, and they're like, are we going to run over little kids? And so we just, with strangers, me and Chris are like, we'll load your boat for you. And as people come up, we're like loading their boat and talking and moving on. And one of the coolest things about it is like, this is kind of like a little utopian society. Why? Because with the absence of hatred, with the absence of things that divide us, and the presence of things that unite us, and people dropping their guards, kids of all colors and backgrounds playing all up and down, talking to everybody that's grilling out in every different place. And it's like, gosh, man, this is better than most churches have on Sunday mornings. And it was just powerful. I mean, as you're sitting there literally melting, because it was 190 degrees outside, and for some reason we have a campfire and a grill going. I have no clue why. We were deciding how to cook stuff and melting ourselves, but it was the presence of something that just was like, yeah, this is like a slice of what heaven is probably going to be like, but probably around 68 to 72 degrees. Wherever God sets the thermostat, but like everybody just reflecting, enjoying life together, and there was no problems. And that's a powerful inference that John makes, is that if you don't know love, you don't know God. You don't know the God I know. You don't know the God that worked for a couple thousand years, 4,000 years maybe, putting together an incredible redemptive process, all to come find me, an enemy, a broken sinner, and tell me he loves me. And if you try to tell me you know this God, and you're just prideful and nasty and arrogant and mean to people, even more so than theology that you don't agree upon, now, theology, let me just tell all theologians out there that are getting really sweaty and nervous right now. Of course, truth matters. Of course, theology is extremely important. But the most powerful experience of theology, which is theology, it's just the study of God. That's all it is. The most powerful study of God is the experience of unity and loving relationships. There's no way around that. In this is love. Not that we loved God. That's incredibly powerful. For everybody that's a little bit arrogant about being a good, clean-cut church person, you didn't start out loving God. You didn't just because you're so good earn the love of God or catch his eye because you're prettier or cleaner or nicer than others. Listen, you were an enemy. You were broken. You were a sinner and found the same amount of grace at the foot of the cross as a drug addict or a wino under the street or a prostitute working the corner that found Jesus. The same amount of grace and blood covers your life as every other person's life. Not that we even loved God, but that he loved us and sent his son to be a propitiation for our sins. That word, propitiation, it literally just, it's the key modifier, and it literally just means a redemption, a renewal. That it's something that you pay, somebody else pays to please God. Christ came and paid, and now God is pleased. And he came to be the pleasing factor in our relationship with God. If God so loved us, we ought to also love one another. There it is, put together again. Loving God, loving people, completely impossible. If someone says, I love God, and he hates his brother, he's a liar. For the one who does not love his brother, whom he can see, cannot love God, whom he's not seen. Very powerful inference on that too. And finally, we wrap it up with this, the example of the early church that is so powerful. And if you want to see love in action, you just look to that first century church. Still to this day, the most powerful church that's ever lived. In fact, the very reason that some dirty old Gentiles in another continent are meeting together, worshiping the same God and the same Messiah, being followers of Jesus, is because that church was so good at what they did. Reached all the way around the world. And so we have a lot that we can learn from them. In Acts 2, this is what love in action looks like, what we're about to see. It says they continually devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching. There's 4 things here. Continually devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching. We have that. It's called the Bible. That's the teachings that we have. And to fellowship, that's that word koinonia. That means deep, real relationships. The breaking of bread, which means daily life together. That's not referring to the Lord's Supper or communion. And then also to prayer. And it says they did this continuously. Not once a week. These people loved each other so much and were so devoted to each other that they continually did this. And it means literally to be steadfastly attentive to. That's what that word means. To give unremitting care to a thing. That Greek word means that they gave unremitting care to 4 things: the apostles' teaching, and to the fellowship of the believers, the koinonia between us, the breaking of bread, and to prayer. Those 4 things is what they continuously devoted themselves deeply to. And all those who had believed were together and had all things in common. I want you just to read this and hear the personality of this church. They had all things in common. They began selling their property and possessions and were sharing them with all as anyone might have need. And people start getting really nervous about this part. It's like, well, hold on, I've worked hard for my stuff and blah, blah. That's not the point. I don't think that it's a biblical truth that when you become a believer, you'll start selling property and your house and giving it to people. I believe it is showing how deeply devoted to each other they were. The point of this is that they were so devoted to the relationships they had in the family of God that as people had need, they lavished their excesses upon those people because they had priorities in other places. The apostles' teaching and to fellowship, to breaking of bread and to prayer. Those are the things that we just pour into. And, the house, the land, a car, an extra dime or two, some extra food, those things I could share with anybody. And that's what they did. That's the New Testament example. But this phrase that they had all things in common, it means they weren't just a group of people that met up on Sunday for a program. Listen to me. They weren't a group of people that met up for an hour or 2 on Sunday for a program of common entertainment. That's not what this church was about. This church was not about coming to a building that better have good things to offer for children and their youth, and they need to offer me a few things that were good. Listen, I am so devoted to my church family that I have all things in common, and I share life, and we go do almost everything together, and we become a true family that we are devoting and pouring our energy into, all for the fellowship of the believers. And then it says they were sharing them all with each other. And I'm pointing these things out because it's a picture, and it gives you kind of a flavor of what the New Testament church was about. They were about 100% about each other. About each other first. Day by day, continuing with one mind. That's truly miraculous. One mind in the temple and breaking bread from house to house. They were taking the meals together with gladness and sincerity of heart. Yeah, here's the key modifiers. Day by day. This group was every day spending time with each other. Now that might be a terrifying fact or idea for some of you. Like, oh my gosh, I can barely get through a couple hours together with these people. I'm supposed to spend day by day with each other. Yeah, that's how devoted to each other they were. And remember that this is a reflection of God's love in their life. This is a manifestation of the love that they had for God, because it's tied together. If you love God this much, you're going to be this passionate about each other. If you love me, you will love my church. I love this song by, what was his name? You love me, you will love. Derek Webb. Yeah, Derek Webb had an album several years back, and it was one of the most honest written albums that I'd ever seen. Like, he wrote this one song that said, he was confessing to the Lord. He was like, I put you on like a wedding dress, and I run down the aisle. Man, what's the rest of those words? It's not super important. But he basically said, I put you on just like a wedding dress, and I run down the aisle. Huh? You're not going to tell me? Heather, there's like 15 of us here. Okay. But anyways, he has another song that says, if you love me, you will love the church. And you can't separate the two things. Day by day, like they loved each other. Day by day, we spent time together. Our focus was not on extracurriculars or our kids doing stuff. And here's the thing, please don't be offended and go, well, if my kids do anything, look, I'm not saying your kids can't be part of the culture and play some baseball or do some dance or whatever, or what other things do kids do? Play video games all day long? I don't know. I'm not saying that they can't do any of that stuff. I'm saying prioritize each other. Prioritize your kids being raised with other church kids, believers, and being around other grown, mature, adult believers, and have fun with them. Go to the lake, I don't know, together with them. Do stuff like that. They spent day in and day out together. It means they were there every day. That's a dedicated church. Praising God, having favor with all the people, and the Lord was adding to their number day by day those who were being saved. Listen, that's a powerful truth. When you love each other with the power and commitment that these people loved each other people looked at that and went, wow, I want to be a part of that, man. I want to be in on that. And this early church, especially like those first few years, thousands at a time just were flocking to it. And they didn't have cool buildings and sound equipment and, the First Jerusalem Praise Band up there doing praise band seminars. And they didn't have incredible outreach programs and training and evangelism and discipleship. They didn't have that stuff. You know what they had? Love for each other. A powerful commitment to each other. That's it. And that's what the world found irresistible.